I would like to start with the Toronto Blue Jays. You came out with an article in The Athletic on one difference-making trade for each American League team in the wild card race. Blue Jays have another strong weekend against the Red Sox. They've been rolling for a while now, and it's a team that you would think is pushing their chips in, which is also playing in a weaker American League than we usually see. So what's your plan for them?
Yeah, so I had them trading for Merril Kelly. Why did I have that? Well, when I talked to the Blue Jays, they say their biggest need is going to be a starting pitcher at the deadline. That's what their goal is. And so I kind of look at Arizona, and even though right now they say they're buying and they're trying to buy pitching, I just have a hard time believing that's where Arizona is going to end up in 31 days. Why? Because I don't think this is a playoff team because of the injuries that they've had. And I believe that running that organization, knowing that Zach Allen, Merril Kelly, Josh Naylor, and Eugenio Suarez are all free agents at the end of the year, this is a seller's market at the trade deadline. Why in the world wouldn't you be shopping those four players? Try to get 10 to 12 players in return, and then try to re-sign whoever you want to in the offseason. And, I spent the last 5 days being in contact with all the GMs and presidents of all 30 teams because I'm writing an article for The Athletic that's either going up tomorrow or the next day, kind of on an anonymous poll of who is going to get traded between now and the trade deadline. Who do they think? Because last year when I did this, we nailed it, right? And coming from them, they're talking to the clubs. They couldn't mention their own players. They could only mention other teams' players. I thought it was fascinating. And it was interesting in terms of Merril Kelly. His name is mentioned quite a bit. And I think there's a lot of executives that believe that when Arizona gets to the end of the month, they will be dealing him. And so the fact that that's the Blue Jays' biggest need, and the fact that I think Arizona probably is going to move one or two of those starters, I think it makes sense.
All right, JB, the next trade that you said is a possibility, less about the team that's getting him and more about Kyle Stowers. Kyle Stowers doesn't even have 2 years of service. Is it really possible that he is that much somebody that the Marlins are looking to move? Like they're that far out from ever even trying to contend or compete?
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of that. I think it's a matter of what Peter Bendix is trying to do. And he is trying to collect as much young talent as he can for the long haul. They're playing really well. They've won 7 in a row. They had a tremendous road trip. They're feeling good about themselves. But if someone's going to overvalue Stowers and that left-handed power that he has, and he can win a trade, he'll do it. It's interesting in talking to and texting with all the GMs and managers, how many people think Alcantara is actually going to get traded and that Cabrera could get moved and Stowers could get moved? It's because they're having conversations with Miami. That's why those names keep coming up. And although I don't think Alcantara's value right now is what it should be to move him, maybe someone's going to pay that price. And for Stowers, there's just enough teams, the Kansas City Royals, the San Diego Padres, that are looking for that, left-handed power bat that they can put on the corner. Guardians, another team that is looking for that power. And so there are teams that might overpay to get Stowers because he is controllable and he is inexpensive, and they might pay a price that Peter Bendix likes. When you look at the history of the trades he's made, he's made a lot of trades. He traded Jesus Luzardo, who he was still controlling for a couple of years because of the prospect return he got from Philadelphia. So it's kind of where Miami is, and it's more importantly, Peter Bendix came from Tampa Bay. And he wants to trade for those young guys. He doesn't care if they're an A-ball or double-A. He wants to stockpile as much as he can to win in the long term, and that's what he's doing.
All right, I got a couple questions for you on this. First of all, you mentioned the Rays. Hunter Goodman, the Rockies aren't trading him. He's their one bright spot on this whole season of not very bright spots. And Taj Bradley and Theo Gillian, if you're Taj Bradley, you're like, please don't send me there. Keep me in Tampa, please. Right? So I would say that one is questionable. And then the big one for me is number 4. Acquire Luis Robert Jr. from the White Sox to the Guardians. First of all, Jerry Reinsdorf has said he won't trade in the division, which we've seen. And Luis Robert right now has no value. He's on the IL, and he's been terrible when he's played. Why would the White Sox even look to trade him? Because they're not going to get anything in return.
Well, they're not going to trade him if his value is nothing. They're only going to trade him if someone's going to believe what he did a couple of years ago when he hit the 38 homers and stole 20 bags. They're only going to trade him if they can get value back. If they can't get a top 10 prospect for him, they'll hold on to him and they'll wait until he gets healthy, maybe he finishes the year strong, and then move him then. But this is a seller's market. There's not a lot of bats that are out there on this marketplace right now. So if they get the offer, they'll do it. Now, in terms of Hunter Goodman, Tampa Bay has made it very clear. They're trying to get a long-term answer at catcher. They haven't been able to do it. And, they do match up with Hunter Goodman, who's not a great defensive catcher, but he's a really good offensive catcher. If Colorado gets some pitching back and gets a young stud outfielder and someone wants to overpay, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you trade your only all-star? And then, Kansas City Royals, they've got 3 really good catching prospects. Carter Jensen, who just got promoted, Blake Mitchell. Perhaps they match up. I don't see how they match up as well as possibly Colorado. For the Rockies to get pitching, you got to trade for it or draft it, right? You're not going to sign them in free agency. We've watched the same rotation finish in last place for 5 straight years, at least 3 of them. How many more years are we going to watch the same pitchers before they start finding a way to trade for different arms? And I think Taj Bradley with his makeup would be a good cultural fit for Colorado rebuilding, and I think he would certainly help their rotation.
Let me get to the National League with you here real quick. So I want to touch on one NL West team and then kind of summarize the NL Central together. This is a big one that I'm sure you will receive many comments, if you haven't already, about Padres bringing in Sandy Alcantara from the Marlins. And you're like, great, that's awesome. Ethan Salas, Leo DeVries, Braden Nett, Humberto Cruz. First 2 names are the ones that most people know. So you went hard. You got to give up the top 2 prospects. They're super young. They've been talked about already for a while, right? How did that one get received, and how did you put it together?
Oh, I got all the hate, which is great, and that's what you should do. We can't give up these guys. These guys are all superstars. How could the Padres will never do that? You're crazy. Yeah, that's fine. When Sandy Alcantara is right, he won the Cy Young Award. Anyone that's met him understands makeup is 80 out of 80. He's got the size. He understands how to win. He's getting healthy. We've watched the last 3 or 4 starts. Some people are going to want to see him do this more before willing to give up that kind of package. But he's an ace and he's controllable. You get him for 3 postseasons, right? They're going to lose Dylan Cease and Michael King in free agency. Unlikely they're going to be able to extend either one. And then where are you going to be next year, right? You don't know what Musgrove's going to look like after Tommy John. You don't know what Yu Darvish at 39 years old is going to be. So here's your ace. Because your window's here to win, not just this year, but when you have Machado and Bogarts, Tatis, and all these guys signed, you want to keep winning. So here's your chance to get an ace. And will the price come back and burn you? With DeVries, it will. It'll be like James Wood. And you'll sit there and go, oh, how did you give him up? I get it. He's going to be a great player. I love him. But you're not going to get Alcantara without paying a price. In terms of Salas, look, I love the bat speed like everyone else does. He hadn't hit yet. I know he's 19 in AA. I love that. Hadn't hit yet at all anywhere. I'm not saying he's not going to. I like the player, but sometimes we overhype these guys. You do have to hit a breaking ball in the big leagues, right? You do have to do that. And it's pretty hard hitting the big leagues if you can't hit in the minor leagues. I'm not saying he won't. I love the player. Don't get me wrong. But I think a lot of times people are reading about prospects and they're just assuming that they're going to live up to what everyone says. And all I would do is ask all of the viewers right now, go back and look at the top 50 prospects from all the websites you want over the last 15 years, and then maybe look at it a little bit differently.
Is the NL Central going to be won at the trade deadline? Is it going to be the team that moves first? Is it going to be the Reds acquiring O'Hearn? Is it going to be the Rockies actually parting with Ryan McMahon and the Brewers picking him up? How is this trade deadline going to shape the NL Central, which has become pretty tight race? Had the Brewers won yesterday, it would have been 1 game back. They're still just 2 games back of the Cubs.
Yeah, that's a great question. The Cubs are going to win the trade deadline in the NL Central. They're everywhere right now, and they're willing to part with Owen Cassey, one of their top power-hitting outfield prospects, as part of the package. And Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins literally are everywhere. I mean, as I talk to people in the industry, they're all in, and they're going to do what it takes to win. The Reds don't have a lot of money to spend. They could use a bat. I can see them getting a bat. I don't think the Cardinals are going to do much. They need impact, but they're not going to trade the future for this year. Brewers have a really good team, and I think their starting rotation, I think the Brewers, in my opinion, is a huge threat because of that. And Brandon Woodruff is going to get back, but I don't expect them to be busy at the trade deadline. I understand they're trying to upgrade the left side of the infield. They're not getting much offense from shortstop or third base, so that's what they're trying to do. Easier said than done in this marketplace. And again, we have to look at this market right now. It's going to change a lot in 31 days, but you've got a lot of buyers right now that have to turn to sellers because the sellers don't have a lot. And so you need the Orioles, right? You need the Rangers, the Red Sox, the Diamondbacks, the Twins, the Guardians, and all of them could be sellers at the deadline. If that happens, we'll have a lot of fun. We will. And it was interesting because in my poll and talking to people, I was getting, Emmanuel Clase and Stephen Kwan names if the Guardians sell. I was getting Duran and Jack's names from the Twins if they sell. So I think the deadline changes a lot. But in the NL Central, I kind of feel like the Cubs are the one team that are in position to make the splash. They've got the better system and willingness to give up the system at this particular trade deadline. Remember, Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins' contracts are up with Kyle Tucker right here, right now. They're going to be an interesting team to watch for sure.
All right, Harry's is going to get an award here, MVP in the shaving world. And AJ, if you want to equate it to things that we talk about, it's not expensive. And it's super versatile, right? The company itself, because there's other products that you can get on the site, deodorant, body wash, etc. But for your everyday shaving needs, Harry's has you covered. And you look at the pricing, you look at the quality, and you're like, wait, why was I using the old classic brand for a long time?
Listen, as somebody right now that needs a Harry's, I've just been lazy. Harry's, I have plenty of them lined up, ready to use. You can use them for more than one shave, which is huge for me. And the pricing is right. I got to go get my Harry's because my neck beard is sick. But Harry's will fix that. It'll line me up straight. It'll no bumps, no cuts. It's exactly what I need for a great price.
That's right. Get the edge on your shave with Harry's. Normally their trial set is $10, but right now you can get it for just $6 at harrys.com/foul. That's our exclusive link, harrys.com/foul, for a $6 trial set.
Do teams still pump up prospects falsely and hide guys? No. Did they used to when you were a GM?
Yeah, I would say for the first half of my GM career, there were teams that still did it. But I mean, come on, let's all be sensible. I mean, everybody has their scouts and eyeballs on these guys. Everybody has analytics. Everybody has the science now. We're not guessing first step quickness, or we're not guessing angle. We know those. We know arm strength. We know bat speed. We're not guessing bat speed. We're not guessing that, Junior Caminera's Gary Sheffield bat speed. All we got to do is look at Baseball Savant and it shows it to us. So, yeah, there's no guessing. I mean, I think the one part where you try to do a little deception, even today, is the mental part of it, right? Like, you win with players as human beings. You don't win with the baseball player. You win with the human. And so there are a lot of very talented players that maybe don't have that competitiveness, or they don't have the makeup and character to win, but they have the tools that are all-star tools. And so if you have a player like that in your organization, and as an example, the Rockies have some guys like that I'm not going to mention, you may want to really prop the guy up because he may have the stats and the tools. And if that team hasn't done their homework on what the player and the human being he really is, perhaps you can make a good deal that way. So I think if there's one way of propping up or propping down, it would be on the human element.
But that was going to be, so you led right into what I was going to ask. How do some teams just keep missing them? Because we all have the same information. Everybody has the same information. You see dudes that just do not hit the ball in the air. I get it. Like a Justin Crawford, he's got an elite skill. He's still not elevating the balls. But how do teams miss consistently more than other teams?
Yeah, it's the world, right? I mean, I could parallel to politics. I could parallel to running organizations. Everybody has different lenses. I can tell you if I had 36 scouts out of 36, I would tell you I probably had 4 or 5 that I could really trust. And it's not that the other 31 weren't extremely talented and knew what they were watching, but perhaps they didn't really understand what kind of makeup and character Michael Moustakas had, or Brett Boone had, or AJ Przinsky had, right? Like not everybody can really understand that. People can think makeup and character is, a really nice guy and went to the right schools and says the right things and is very polite and opens the door, but that's not necessarily the best baseball makeup, right? I'll take Roger Clemens. I'll take Barry Bonds. So at the end of the day, it's, not everybody can process the information and see it the same, and that's same with teams. Some teams just get it. Eric Neander, Andrew Friedman, Theo Epstein, I can go on, Alex Anthopoulos. There's just a lot of guys that get it. Not just know players, not just look at the information, not just study analytics, not understanding the swing or the delivery, but they understand human beings and makeup and character and what motivates them and what doesn't motivate them. It's funny, as I saw Jeremy Pena go on the injured list today, which is very disappointing with the cracked rib and a big setback for Houston. But, I was watching his season this year. He had a 5.2 WAR according to stats, which is the second best in the majors. And he's one of the top 3 shortstops in the league with Bobby Witt Jr. and Jacob Wilson. But it was funny because it was in spring training when Joe Espada, the manager, and Dana Brown, the GM, told me Pena's going to have his best year. He's going to have a breakout all-star year. And I asked them why. And they told me because he's in the best mental space he's ever been in his personal life, and in his approach and his preparation. It's a different guy. They said, watch. I'm like, all right, I'll watch. And I saw exactly that. That's the human element. That's what people that have good judgment understand. Hunter Brown struggled when he first came up, right? He had some maturing to do. He had some understanding to do. But you could tell, even talking to him when he struggled, you could tell, as I sat there in spring training a couple years ago, listening to him, I left spring training and go, I'm betting on that guy. Not just because of the stuff. We can all measure the stuff and see it. But how bad he wanted it, I knew he was going to adjust and become an ace, and that's what he's become.
Hey everybody, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.